It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the planet. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hello.
Here we are, made it to a Tuesday. All right, so the one thing that I think caught a lot of people's eyes yesterday was the Des Moines Register poll out of Iowa.
Yeah.
Showing Trump up by 18.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he's at 50, but Biden's at 32. And to put it a little bit in perspective, we go to Fox News yesterday. They were discussing it on the show America's Newsroom, and Fox News contributor Guy Benson was on and put it into perspective.
Trump at 50% in Iowa is not that much of a shock. He won the state comfortably in 2016 and 2020, 8 or 9 points. Joe Biden at 32%, the incumbent president, in what has been a swing state not that long ago. That's the eye popper, an 18-point margin, because Trump is strong. He's got the bare majority, but the incumbent has less than 1/3 support in that state, which is an astounding number. And you might say, well, this is a weird outlier. We haven't seen anything really close to that. But I would point out this is considered the gold standard poll in the state of Iowa. It's a woman, Ann Seltzer, who runs it, and she almost nailed Trump's margin in the last two elections in Iowa. In fact, Trump barely outperformed her poll, just a little bit. So if he's even in the ballpark of up 18 points in a state like Iowa, the story isn't Iowa. The story is Minnesota to the north, Wisconsin in the neighborhood. If he's got that kind of margin there and she's tracking that correctly, the Democrats have to be very worried about the upper Midwest in general.
You know, when we looked at the poll, it's a likely voter poll. It's not a registered voter poll,
right,
or all-American. When I say all-American, I don't mean it's a patriotic poll. I mean just all adult Americans.
Right. Yeah.
It's likely voters, and so that's what makes it so interesting. And their accuracy in the past too is what makes it interesting. And as we brought up, it sort of mirrors where people are on the major issues.
Yeah.
Where they are on the border, where they are on crime, where they are on no cash bail, where they are on defund the police. Where they are on all the major issues out there, inflation. That's what the number is. The number is like 15, 18, whatever. If people were voting strictly on the issues, and with inflation, we know it's just through the roof and it's not going anywhere. And the concern the Democrats should have is we're still months out from the election. It starts to get more serious as people get into October. If you get into October, whoever the undecided are will be the people like Obama that aren't paying attention because they're watching sports, as he said the other day.
Yeah.
That he's not paying attention. He watched sports because the news is just so hard to take. Well, what?
The former president,
the former president.
I'm so weak.
I'm not paying attention to the news.
Yeah.
I don't like the news, so I'm not going to pay attention.
I don't care about your problems. I want to watch sports.
And I just go back to Chris, I always forget his name. Not Chris Wallace.
Chris Matthews.
Chris Matthews on MSNBC, where he said this is probably a year and a half in to the Obama presidency.
It was at the end of it was in the fall of 2011 because we were about.
Oh, was that long?
Out.
Okay, so it was 3 years in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. I thought it was sooner. I thought he had said it sooner. That basically Obama doesn't like the gig.
He may have also said it sooner, but we were focused on it because right about that time it was him and a couple of others. I think Neil Cavuto had even mentioned that they fully expected him not to run for re-election.
Oh, that was it.
Now
you're right. That was it.
Yeah.
Yep. No, you're right. That was it.
And we were thinking because we were heading into the fall of 2011, and it's like, okay, well then they need to announce who the person is. We suggested Joe Biden, the vice president at the time, but he was busy, with Burisma and whatnot. But here's the thing, is that he didn't like the gig. He didn't like the work. He loved the attention. Remember all the reports of, and I think Matthews mentioned it, the reports of all the reports of Obama just walking away when there should have been some meet and greets of VIPs, that kind of thing. But even with meeting with his own party, he didn't like sitting down with Democrats to get things done. Back then.
You mentioned two separate things. One thing is where Chris Matthews said he doesn't want to meet with the Democrat leaders. So he certainly doesn't want to meet with the Republican leaders. And he said the guy doesn't like the gig. He loves the celebrity that comes with it, but he doesn't actually want to be the person that has to unite his own party or be bipartisan in any way. That's not him. And the second point that you brought up, and I remember this, I'm so glad you brought it up, was that when he would do campaign outings and the donors would be there.
Yeah.
Well,
you got to meet with donors. You got to shake hands.
It's like if I'm trying to think of the not crowdfunding, where you can support bands or do stuff like that, indie bands, and you can, I forgot what they call, Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon.
Patreon. That there are bands that do it, and when they have get-togethers, they specifically say meet and greet for the Patreons because you're the ones that are giving them that seed money so they can do a ton of things like record or do whatever.
Right.
And so it's the same thing with campaigning. The donors, when you go to a thing, the donors want to meet with you. They want to shake your hand. Remember, he didn't want to do it.
Right.
And it was brought up as it was unbelievable. Obama doesn't even want to meet with the people that are supporting him, which is something that you always want to do when you're looking for those. And he's talking about some pretty big donors. You don't want to meet with them. I'll take your money, but I don't want to meet with you.
A friend of mine worked for a huge corporation for years, large global corporation that was a sponsor of Tiger Woods. And he said that at the events, at any time there was a tournament, Tiger would make a beeline for the room where the executives were, because it's Tiger Woods. He's going to have everybody's going to want his autograph, want a picture, and everything else. But they're on a tight schedule. It's tournament weekend or week, and he made it a priority because you have to. His sponsors, not just the sponsors of the event, but his sponsors got priority. It's something you have to do. If you're politically counting on that money from those big sponsors and you decide not to go shake the hands, well, I guess his thought was they're going to give me money one way or the other. I don't have to.
Yeah, they just hate Romney.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Romney is a radical.
Exactly. They're going to love me whether I shake their hand or not. And they'll get over it.
And that was pretty amazing. That it's like the only people that might be shocked that's going on are the people that are not paying attention, which is why we mentioned Obama when he said the other day that I don't pay attention anymore. I just watch sports. It's like, yeah, right. You just can't defend what your party is doing. That's why. But that is a great point that Benson made on Fox. How does this affect the Midwest? The one thing that, again, sits in the back of my mind, and if you've been a listener to the show the last year, we've been repeating this over and over again. When will the public say, forget about personality, forget about if I dislike someone, who's going to stop this massive inflation?
Yeah.
Who's going to do a better job in stopping the massive inflation and stopping what's happening at the border? You saw it came out last week. The majority of new jobs are being taken by non-U.S. citizens in the United States.
Yeah.
That just came out a couple of days ago. And so when you see all these things where the former president is up by 15 to 20 points, sometimes more, on the actual issue, but it doesn't reflect it. And as you get closer and people become more serious, where they look and they say, well, because I'll say right now, this is the most incompetent administration.
Oh, by far.
Incompetent in not being able to put a message across, but very calculated in what they're doing. For the president to get up there today and announce amnesty with everything going on at the border is mind-boggling. As Charles Cook said, what is he doing? Does he not want to win? And it's like, well, I don't think he cares. Or they're in the bubble where everybody he talks to, all of his staff, they all think the same. When you put somebody around yes men and yes women all day and all night, they can get in their little bubble and just believe, I don't pay attention to the polls. This is what America believes.
The audio we just played from Fox News is spot on in so many ways. I was shaking my head affirmatively as we were listening to it about the neighboring states of Iowa. There is a very similar mindset with a lot of voters in that region. And I know this from traveling to Iowa for a number of years. We've been covering Iowa. Everybody covers. If you cover American politics, you have to cover Iowa. It's where every primary season begins. But it is the mindset and culture in that region is very similar. So certainly there is what should be concern by the Democratic Party as to what it looks like in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and, the other, any of the flyover states as well. You look at Iowa right now, and it is one of those barometers for voters who can go the other direction, not in your direction. And we have seen that. You pointed out earlier that Obama won Iowa, and then Biden loses Iowa in 2020, and right now looks like he's going to get crushed in Iowa. And the question would be, how much of that poll that we saw also could be reflected in states like Wisconsin and Minnesota? If you throw in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Brett Hume was saying about 3 or 4 weeks ago that of those 7 battleground states, if Trump wins just 2 of those, he's going to win. I haven't seen his breakdown on the math. I trust Brett Hume to be accurate on that. But you look at where the polls are right now in not just 2 of those 7 states, but at least 4 of them, and they heavily favor Trump. And everything is going against Biden, his age, his cognitive concerns, the border, inflation. Tell me what's working for Biden.
Well, think about it. Today, he's going to announce amnesty.
Right.
He went through the disaster of all the videos that the White House says, well, let's call them all fake, which just puts more attention to the fact that they're not fake.
Right.
So you've got all this, all this insanity going on. And then last week saying he's going to do something about the border. Then he forgets about it. And a week later, he's offering amnesty, as he's going to do again today. And so he does. And that's why some of the articles written was, does he not care about winning? I think they're such in the bubble. They are in such a closed, sealed bubble that they believe what they're doing is actually the right thing and that the polls are all wrong.
Yep.
Because you just go into denial. The polls are all wrong.
Yep.
It can't be that way. But if it's indicative of what's going on in this country, if you look at Iowa and you see Obama won by 6 points, I believe, in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hillary lost by like 9 to Trump, and then Biden lost by like 6 to Trump, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
Trump's up by 18.
Yeah.
Wow. If that's an indication, it also shows, because it was also on the day yesterday that the Democrats announced a $50 million ad buy just to call Trump convicted felon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing. Convicted felon. Everybody knows. Is that a way? Here's my question. Is that a wasted $50 million?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Because you're not converting anybody. At best, you're preaching to the choir, and I'm not sure that you're even getting that done to 100%. That's a huge waste of $50 million. Come out and call. I don't know. Throw anything else at Trump but that.
I don't think now. I could be wrong. I don't think anything where we are right now is where we're going to be in November.
Yeah, because there is no turnaround. Inflation's not going. Prices aren't going to come down. The border's not going to be closed. So, and Biden is not going to get any better. His cognitive decline is measurable over the last month or two, and we all know it.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Some parts of the country this week are seeing dangerously high temperatures.
So if it's dangerous for people, it is usually dangerous for pets as well.
Something pet owners should bear in mind. This from Agriculture Department veterinarian Dr. Dawn Fitzhugh. She says dogs are susceptible to heat because unlike we humans, we have sweat glands all over our bodies to cool us down. Just about the only cooling mechanism a dog has is panting. Yes, and for some dogs, that's not enough to keep them from becoming dangerously hot and dying from it. She says before taking our dogs out in the heat, we should ask ourselves some questions.
Is our pet used to this type of heat? Are they overweight? Are they underweight? Are they older? Are they really young? So all of those things can come into play as to how our pets can tolerate the heat.
She says when temperatures are up in the 90s and above, the best advice, limit your pet's exposure to the heat as much as possible. Take walks in the early morning when it's cooler. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More polling analysis coming up following the bottom of the hour. I want to play this audio cut, though. Got to make sure I get this one in.
All right.
This is Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday being asked a question about how it's not a threat to democracy when you have a prosecutor of the same political party as the president waiting 7 years to prosecute in an election year a former president who is now running again. Because you're talking about they're a threat to democracy. How do you answer that question? Here we go.
The president talks about threats to democracy, and this is the first time I've had a chance to ask a question since former President Trump was convicted. How is it not a threat to democracy when you have a prosecutor from the same party as the president waiting 7 years to prosecute the political opponent in an election year?
I'm sorry, I don't.
How is it not a threat to democracy when you have a prosecutor of the same political party as the president waiting 7 years? The crime happened in 2017. To prosecute in an election year a former president who's now...
That's a question for the Department of Justice on their timeline and how this moves. I can't answer that for you here. Go ahead, Phil.
Very quickly. Next question. Now, what did she actually say? She said that's up to the Department of Justice timeline.
Oh, really?
This was a Bragg prosecution. What they have said over and over again is the Department of Justice had nothing to do with Bragg's prosecution. And here Karine Jean-Pierre is saying, go ask the Department of Justice. It was on their timeline. She had to backtrack on that afterwards.
Yeah, because now we have a lot more questions. What? DOJ who?
Thank you for helping the White House there and the Department of Justice.
Great job.
Call and join the conversation. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. All right, we're going to play this audio cut here. Now, we want to make sure everybody knows we are not questioning her faith or her ability to create miracles.
No.
We are only asking the question if this was MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said this, what the response would have been from the media yesterday.
Okay.
Because probably you haven't even heard of this story and what Representative Cori Bush from the squad said to PBS.
You're a pastor.
Yes.
You write about healing through faith. At one point, you came across a woman with, quote, several visible tumors on her torso. Tell me what happened.
So at that time, I, along with a group of friends, we would go out on the street and just meet with people and pray with people and offer them food. And this lady came to us and she had these tumors. I mean, she wanted us to like feel them. And I just remember I put my hand on her and my hand just began to move. And the lumps that were there were no longer there. And she was so happy and she like went on about her day. And I never saw her again.
So you think the tumors disappeared?
I do. And this woman was unhoused. She's someone who, had been sleeping in the shelters and sleeping on the street. If I can speak a prayer and I can believe what I believe and you believe that this will help you, then why not offer that to people? Because I know prayer has helped me.
So there you go. What if MTG, not questioning somebody's faith, but their ability to actually create a miracle, because that's what it would be, a faith healer. If you could prove that, if you could prove that in the Catholic Church, that would be a miracle.
Yeah, if you could demonstrate that.
Yes. How would the media respond if MTG had said that yesterday? That's how you know media bias exists. Because on PBS, it was viewed as this is totally legitimate, not to be questioned at all.
Right.
And when questioned in a way of what you believe, in a very, very soft and compassionate way. So that's all we're asking.
Well, I have some soft and compassionate questions myself. Like the diagnosis of what was there before and or after. How can that be known? Is it what the person said it was? I don't expect anyone to answer these questions, but I do have the questions, and I think they're legitimate. If you're going to make the claim of performing a miracle, you've got my attention. So I should be able to ask questions, and I will all day. I have a very strong faith. I believe in the power of prayer. I pray multiple times a day. I believe in miracles. I don't believe every politician who tells me they perform miracles, and I may have lost count, but so far it's only been one.
Well, I'm going to turn off.
If you don't include Obama.
I'm going to turn you off now and start watching sports.
Yeah. Well, because I wanted to include the miracle of his brackets.
Because you're too much of a cynic. So I'm going to, like Obama, I'm going to watch sports.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of ironic, though? The world is too cynical.
For Obama.
Well, who's the cynical one? You're being so cynical, you won't even pay attention to it.
Yeah. And what's cynical? What specifically is cynical? I would think that since you're the smartest man to ever hold the White House, remember that? We have long memories. You would say, I'm going to go after and destroy the cynics with the facts of how liberalism and socialism is definitely preferred throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of backing off and saying, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go watch sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have nothing against watching sports. But he is saying he's watching sports because it's not to enjoy the sport, but because he can't stand the cynical world.
Yeah.
You were leader of the free world for 8 years.
Yeah, you're a former president.
You're former president of the United States.
Shut it all off.
And you're
Either there's something very scary out there and he's not telling us about it. It's probably aliens. Or he's just being, well, a gaslighting virtue signaler.
Or he's come to the realization that Cori Bush is a prophet from God, and he can't handle that.
Well, does he have a problem with her clinging to her God?
Oh, wow.
That would be my question.
That may be the thing. That's why he's upset.
He's turning out.
Cori Bush is
there you go. Yeah.
Clinging. Now, see, if you're a Democrat, you can't cling to God, but you can grapple.
Right.
Not to God, but
right.
On other things you can grapple. Obama grappled. He doesn't like the Cori Bush clinging.
Yeah. I mean, we know she doesn't cling to guns, but the other part. It's too easy.
I'm telling you, I will always. My father telling me that at 14 years of age, when you grow up, you're going to find out that people actually want to be BS.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I see Obama, I think of my father saying that. The ultimate BS that people fell for with Obama.
Yeah.
He did nothing. Well, he did do some things. He's the one that created, as we all know, he is the one that was the catalyst that lit the spark for the radical transgender movement that a man can be a woman when the man says so. Obama created that original misogyny of liberalism because he's the one that first went after, as we all know, Title IX to change it. That's where it started because that's where, remember, during his administration is when the whole bathroom issue came along. Yeah. People forget about it.
Oh, yeah.
Even in Texas, we're not going to go to Texas. If you ban men from going potty with women, then we're not going to have our sporting event in your town. We're not going to move our business to your town. Boy, that really stopped quick, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did.
That's not around much anymore, is it?
Nope.
Remember North Carolina?
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to hold. The NCAA is not going to hold our championship. Shut up, you idiots!
Yeah,
and then remember the Charlotte newspaper.
Oh,
Charlotte Observer.
Charlotte Observer. Yeah.
Young girls need to get used to male genitalia in the locker room.
Right.
This is a civil rights issue.
Right.
Bunch of damn perverts.
Yeah. Yeah. They and it was full on, by the way. And that was the tone. It was a very perverted tone from the beginning.
Yeah, wow, yeah. Wasn't that creepy reading that editorial that day?
Oh, my gosh.
I felt like
it was.
I had to go home and shower after I read that.
Well, and the California school situation, that was really one of the first in a public school situation that rose to the top about the daughter.
The 8-year-old girl or something, or 9-year-old girl? Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Where she was called a bigot.
And they were going after her full on.
Yeah, she was a kid.
And the whole thing had a perverted tone to it.
Yeah, it really did.
It's like, what is happening here? And we warned then, oh, guys, this is just one school. La, la, la. It's California. It's not going anywhere. Fast forward to 2024. Here we are.
Well, the two idiots overnight were right again on something.
Yeah. Yep.
By accident, we stumbled in. Well, it's just, you didn't stumble into anything. It's like,
we knew.
These aren't hard things to figure out.
It's not hard. You know where it's going. There's only one direction it can go. And it will never be, oh, we're sorry. We're the liberal left. We're sorry. We were wrong about it all. It will never be that. So it's going the opposite direction.
I want to get this audio cut in because we had talked about the Des Moines Register poll showing Trump up 18 points to Biden in Iowa.
Whoa.
Which is just...
That's insane. But you hit on it earlier. It bears repeating here. You said this is where the polling should be based on everything that's going on right now.
All the issues, right?
With all the issues, this is what the polls should look like. So, at first when you and I or anybody that's been doing it for a while, oh, that may be an outlier. Look at the breakdown. And by the way, this gives RFK Jr. in this same poll. RFK Jr. has 9.
Well, very, very quickly here in the CBS poll, and this is the article from Charles Cook, what is Biden thinking on immigration, where he's going to offer the amnesty today? Mm-hmm. And it's like on its report on the topic, CBS nonchalantly observed that the plan would remove an obstacle in the U.S. law, which, if his prior lawlessness is any guide, is almost certainly a euphemism for usurping the authority of Congress, and to what end? To make himself even more unpopular than he already is. So pronounced as Biden's abdication of responsibility at the southern border that solid majorities of Americans have now come to support mass deportations in response. CBS found 62% of registered voters favor a new national program to deport all undocumented immigrants currently living in the United States. Independents back the idea 60-40. Hispanics 53-47, men 66-34, women 58-42, voters without college degrees 74-26, voters with college degrees 58-42. You only get to those kind of numbers like that. Remember, this is on mass deportation.
Yep.
You only get to those kind of numbers where voters have said everything is the F word. Very quickly, here's the CNN polling expert talking about Trump's massive gains with black voters.
CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton is with us. So where does the race stand among African-American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it simply put has not yet. So this is the margin, or Biden and Trump among black voters, compare where we were at this point in 2020, compare where we are now. At this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African-American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground. It's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for a Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
And that's the thing. You've got all the polls moving in like I said, one direction. What was the Arizona poll? 7 points, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so you look at it, and that's why I said the $50 million ad campaign the Democrats bought to say Trump is a felon.
Yeah.
Will that have any effect at all? Because everybody's processed that over the last 2 weeks. Who didn't know about that? Who doesn't know that Trump was convicted? Who doesn't know in the United States?
And that's and that's the problem. You're bringing it, and I mentioned this before the conviction. You come up with a conviction here, you're going to get the attention of people who haven't been paying attention as closely as we have, and they're going to do their own homework on this, and they did.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Will be interesting to see the response to the Biden amnesty later on today. We'll have more on that coming up on the show for tonight. Also, what's the other thing I wanted to get to? It keeps coming up. I keep going by the same story with Obama saying, I'm watching sports. I'm not paying attention to the news because there's too much cynicism.
Yeah. All right.
Jeez.
Fine.
What was the other story that I had? The U.S. faces serious threat of terror attacks. We had that one. And there was another one. I can't think of the other story that I had. All right, we'll figure it out.
Well, it's interesting because after last night, the former President Obama won't be watching NBA because the season is over. We know he's not watching the WNBA because nobody is watching the WNBA. He's probably, is he watching baseball? What sports are he, what's he watching now?
Maybe he's starting his brackets for next year.
Yeah, maybe.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.